Dragon Ball Masters community, welcome back to another video here with Kyle Chris. And it's been a while. We have now finished with the National and Worlds season and moving in now to 2025. We have a lot of new cards that have probably changed the meta slightly, but we're also going to recap, go over Nationals and Worlds a little bit, and give you guys my thoughts on what we are possibly going to see, maybe shake up the meta going forward. Now, a little disclaimer, I didn't do any content for Nationals or Worlds. I was very busy that weekend, and then by the time I got back and started making content, a lot of stuff was already out, and to be honest with you, outside of a few different games, a lot of the games weren't really watchable due to whether it was misplays by the actual players or just misplays by the judges or just not calling stuff. It just was kind of very sloppy, so I just decided not to really put out any content for it and just really go forward and just start fresh with 2025. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel if you guys do enjoy the content. As always, thank you guys for the support, and now we will jump here into the video. All right, so we're going to start this tier list here very quickly. I already kind of put two decks in their categories here because this is where these two decks belong here. But we have Tier Z, which is going to be best deck in format, which I do believe Nova is still best deck in format. We have the Meta Gatekeeper, which is going to be what is considered meta-defining. I think one thing that really needs to be looked at with a lot of content creators, including myself, is we really put too much of an emphasis on what decks are considered meta-defining. There can't be 7 or 8 decks that are defining the meta. That doesn't really it doesn't make sense from a logical perspective. There's typically 1 or 2 decks that are the defining portion of the meta, and then every deck is built around those decks to counter them. So they're not necessarily, those decks aren't the defining meta factor, it's the deck that actually is being played the most, which would be Vegeta right now. Then we have high tier and competitive here, an A and B tier. These are going to be the same side, or two sides of the same coin, essentially. The idea with this is I've had this theory with low ceiling, high ceiling, low floor versus high floor. So like these are definitely like entry level and then max masterful capacity of what a deck can actually do. And decks that are going to be in the A tier probably have a higher ceiling than what you will find in B tier. That doesn't mean a B tier deck can't beat an A tier deck. This just means consistently you will see more A tier decks do really, really well over the span of an 8 or 9 round tournament, but also from multiple people as well, rather than just, you know, one player who is playing a particular deck, right? Then you have Tier C, which is going to be left for the Rogue tier decks. These are going to be decks that are probably right out of being like consistently competitive. They might be able to top an event, but they're missing pieces to probably being able to get over that hump and be considered competitive. And also one part of this is also Rogue decks are typically played less. So that's also something. So just because a deck ended up doing really, really well doesn't mean it's a high competitive deck if only one person plays it. So that's something to keep in mind. And then we have Tier D, which is going to be everybody's favorite tier. This is going to be trash. There's not a ton of decks in here that I think kind of fall into that category. I think one thing you have to look at is D tier decks are just decks to avoid just for this particular format. This might not be the format for them. They might be weak against a very particular deck that's really, really, you know, highly played or highly favored, and we'll try to talk about that as we go on. So I already brought up with Nova. Nova's definitely being the best deck in the format. We had our Nationals and Worlds was won by the same guy playing Nova. So Brian Samuels, he ended up winning both events. I know there was some controversy in the grand finals of Worlds. However, 2 big points of contention here that I think people need to remember. One, he ended up getting there by winning our Nationals. So that is a feat in itself, right? And then 2, he beat other players before that round to get to grand finals. To kind of discredit him, I think would be really stupid and silly. And I know a lot of people are discrediting him, and a lot of people are just saying because it's a North American thing. I think it would have been different if there was a representative from a different country in grand finals. I don't think certain people would be as upset. So that's just my own 2 cents there. But congratulations to Brian Samuels as well. I mean, he did really, really good. He played Nova. He was the one who made Nova popular back at, I want to say it was Cardfest, maybe, when he ended up winning with Nova. And that's when Nova started taking off as being considered this good deck, because everybody under the sun said Nova was unplayable when it first launched. And now the deck ended up winning Worlds the same year. So congratulations to him. And then Vegeta, sort of being the meta deck that a lot of people are basically building their decks around. So your deck has to have a good Vegeta matchup in order to probably place really well, or you just have to get really lucky and just dodge every Vegeta. That might not be possible depending on how many people are playing Vegeta. And the deck itself, I think, has to adjust a little bit just to be able to put itself in a position to win against the yellow decks and the blue decks, which seem to counter Vegeta very well. And typically yellow and blue do very well into red. Anyway, so that brings us to our next deck here, which is going to be Zamasu. I would put Zamasu in A tier. I think this deck is still very strong. It ended up topping in the Oceanus regional, or the Oceania regional. I don't know why I said Oceanus. Ended up topping. It was one person. I think he's the guy who previously topped with the deck as well. He did play the yellow-green variant, which allows you access to Nimbus, which is probably the best way of being able to counter Vegeta. But you can still lose really hard to Vegeta and just red in general, because all of your cards are 20Ks and they can just play one card and kill it. So you really don't have a strategy, I think, in beating Zamasu. I think you just have to be a better player or just get really lucky and they don't have access to some of their cards. If Vegeta was not, because Zamasu was the meta gatekeeper deck of last format, if Vegeta did not exist, Zamasu would easily be up here. It's right there. But I think Vegeta is going to kind of hold Zamasu at bay. And I pray that Bandai doesn't do anything to Vegeta, because we need Vegeta in the meta to keep Zamasu at bay. I would rather play in a pool of Vegeta decks in mirror matchups than play against a Zamasu deck. I just don't want to see that deck at all in Top Cut. Next brings us to Bojack. So Bojack ended up doing very well at our Nationals and at Worlds. You got second place at Nationals and second place at Worlds. Very strong showing for him. I think his name was Dalby or Darby. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. However, I think this was a little bit of an enigma, because we only saw one Bojack player. So I don't think we're going to see the deck played in high volumes. I think the frequency of this deck topping is going to be very, very light, maybe one person every other few events. So I'm going to put Bojack in B tier. This is a deck that has a very high floor entry level to pilot this deck well. It's a little bit different than Vegeta, where you can pick up Vegeta and probably beat other people who have been playing their deck longer just because of what Vegeta is able to do. That doesn't mean Vegeta is easy to play at a high level, because you still have to master a lot of the sequencing and know what you're doing with Vegeta. But picking up Vegeta and picking up Bojack are two very distinctive, different things. I think Bojack has not as high as a ceiling as Vegeta does either. Even though Bojack ended up going to Grand Finals twice in the same weekend, it was the same player who probably had a mastery of the deck anyways. So that's more of an outlier than it is something that would be considered like defining of the meta. So I'd be comfortable putting it in B tier. Next is going to be Super Saiyan God Trunks. We did see one top our Nationals, which I was very surprised about, just because the deck hasn't received any real support. So it's just kind of weird to see Trunks here. I would say Trunks is probably competitive still. I kind of discredited it last time just because I didn't think people were really going to play it, but I guess people wanted to play it. So, I mean, he topped with it, so I can't put it in Rogue tier because it ended up topping. However, I think this deck will indeed struggle against the top decks here. I think it's a worse version of Vegeta. I think Vegeta just has better defense, access to Explosive Dance and other, red negates, while Black still doesn't have any. I know Trunks has access to the Pan-Zeno negate, which is really good, but I think overall, I think Trunks is probably just a step behind. This is probably one of the better Black decks to try to play, but just because it's a Black Saiyan and you have tons of different little tools, but again, you can't really play your actual concept against Vegeta. You can't play the 5-drop God Trunks at all because there's a fear that the card's just going to get blown up by, there's like 3 different cards that can kill it on play. So there's no way of, I think, of beating Vegeta consistently with Trunks. But if you play against some other stuff, you might have a little bit of an okay time. But if you also play against like Mill, Trunks struggles a lot. So now we have Fu. I would say Fu is Rogue tier. This deck cannot beat red. That's always been the issue with Fu. The deck spends too much energy to set the game up. And I think if Fu either played the Z extra for free when it awoken, which I think it should have done, kind of similar to like Nova or like Rainbow Gogeta does, then the deck probably would be better. but I don't think the support card that it got was not really needed. It needs something else, maybe like a Z Unison that can play the Z extra out for free. Just something where you're not spending more Z energy and more energy to play out, you know, because you have to play out the field, you have to play out a foo, and then you have to play out a counterplay to even set up your defense, and that's 3 energy and 3 Z energy, and you're probably almost dead if you're playing against a red deck by then. So you kind of have to kind of change your strategy up a little bit. The deck not having to attack is nice. That's kind of cool. But going down to 4, it's just okay. It's not something I would consider being played a lot. Now we have Beerus. I think Beerus is also considered rogue. I think the amount of support that, like, red is already really good. Red yellow has been a color that's been deceptively good. I think Beerus is a deck that just has been not really explored a lot recently, or just at all. But I think there's something there to where Beerus can be maybe like really low competitive. I just don't know exactly what it is. I've been trying to build it myself just because I really like the SLR. But I really think that there's something there with the Beerus deck, and I think we're 1 or 2 god pieces away from this deck being at least considered on the same level as like Bojack, or just like in like this mid-level like competitive tier where like if someone masters the deck, the deck can actually do really well. We have the Power Wish deck. I'm just gonna put it in a rogue tier. Deck's still too expensive for people to play, and even when you play it, the deck just it does a lot of cool stuff. I've watched some streams where particular people are playing the deck, and it looks really cool, but I can't take the deck seriously. I just don't have the ability to. Cooler Mill is probably still competitive. Same guy who topped the Latin America regional. We saw him in the Worlds. He did very, very well. I think his name is Vincent. Love watching that guy play. He's an incredible cooler player. It's always fun to watch. I always like watching the Latin America events when he plays. Cooler, very bad showing this year at Worlds. I don't think it did probably as well as it wanted to. So because of that, we're going to actually move it down here a little bit, right? Got a little bit of new support, right, with the UI Goku. That's really popular. I think, I think this deck's still probably going to be seen. It hasn't really changed much. You added some new cards. Koitsukai still kind of hurts this deck a lot, and probably how it's going to be for the foreseeable future until it gets something else that maybe is more than a 20k that you can play. Then we have a Venture Coup. So I went a little crazy, and I put Venture Coup in, like, top tier. I think it's more, like, rogue tier. I think the pieces to the Venture Coup deck is really good. I think the pieces are fantastic. I think the Secret Rare is probably the best part about this deck, because now green has probably its new generic Secret Rare to play in every green deck other than maybe like Bojack. On paper does a lot. I just think with red being in the format, I think it's hard to play. Defeating the demon just kind of stops you from doing stuff, and then also because you were kind of locked to playing the Venture Coup stuff, you don't really have a lot of room for a lot of tech options. You're basically playing like Solidarity. That's it. So yeah, I think probably rogue tier for now. Next we have Pan. Pan's competitive. It's probably the last like really fast red deck, other than like if people are playing like Broly Swap. The deck can swing a lot, but noticeably I saw a lot of the people who play Pan typically were on Vegeta for Nationals. So even they knew that Pan wasn't the choice for Nationals. I think going forward, you'll still probably see Pan do well. And the deck's going to considerably just keep getting better because they're going to keep releasing Red Saiyan cards. And who knows, Pan will probably get her 3rd round of support this anniversary set. And I'm sure Pan will just be right back into the the high competitive scene. Next we have Turtle School, which I'm going to put Turtle School also in C tier. The new support was really good, but I don't know. I can't see it being a competitive deck. I just can't see it being a competitive deck. I'm sure it's going to be. I'm sure someone's going to take it, and with the new support, this deck has also gotten a ton of support. Probably as much support as Pan has, but it's just on like the fact of like cards that are particularly for that leader, not the same level, because Pan obviously just flows with every red card that can be played. But Turtle School has gotten a lot of support recently, and it just seems to just not take it over the hump. I don't know what the deck's really missing, because it just got a Z extra. I think maybe like a better like a Z battle card or like a Z unison, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it just seems like it's missing something. Next we have Jiren. This is another deck that I put in competitive, and I still feel really highly about Jiren. I think this deck has a lot of good tools. It does really well into yellow, and if yellow's the predominant deck in the format, or the color in the format, Jiren does really, really well. Like, you can swing through Nimbus all day. However, I think this is a deck where, kind of similar to Bojack in a sense, where this is a very high floor, and the deck doesn't have an incredibly high ceiling. I think the ceiling's much lower, but has a very high floor of entry level. I think this is the deck that probably will get support in the future. I'm going to put it here in competitive, but probably just at the tail end of competitive. Next we have Mai. Seeing one of these top was really funny. I think that was sort of an anomaly. I don't think we're going to see it a lot. I'm going to put it in C tier though. Panzino is also probably like back of competitive. The problem is, after doing a lot of testing with Pan, it feels like if your opponent knows how to stop you from building, if someone knows how to stop you from playing the game, which is basically negating, you really slow down, right? If you're playing against Vegeta, and I thought the Vegeta matchup was going to be really easy for Pan, if you play Vegeta a little more defensively with Broly Omen and like negating their first swings and not attacking them until like turn 3, you basically can just halt a lot of their advantages, and Pan's kill turn really gets pushed back, right? Knowing that though, Pan still has a ton of really good tools. I mean, both of the promos are incredible. The Trunks, and I'll say this until I'm blue in the face, the Trunks promo is what probably keeps Pan being competitive and will always be competitive, because you can deal with wide boards. That's really strong. If this deck gets another Z battle card or another Z unison that you can play that's other than Chilai, I think this deck is going to be really, really strong. And we'll see. I mean, this is a Black Saiyan leader, so it's going to always get support. Just how Bandai does their support. So we'll probably see Pan doing well. It's topped a few different events, so we'll see how much more Pan can actually do this year. Next we have Under 21. This is the deck that I consider to be still highly competitive. I believe it almost topped our nationals. It's a very, very slow, methodical deck. Having the ability to heal yourself also is really good. I think Under 21 is still a deck that you have to deal with when you're playing against, the best players in the room. The deck is not for the faint of heart. This deck is very slow, almost Hatch-like, and you do get a little bit more, I think, leeway than Hatch because you're a blue deck. So you got a lot of like defensive tools. You also have the ability of healing yourself. So this is kind of like the time scum deck in a sense, where you can just always win because you're always going to have more life than your opponent. Next we have Blue Soul Striker, just Soul Striker, I guess. Apparently I was right, which happens quite often in this game, I feel like. I'm also wrong a lot too, but Soul Striker did very well. Ended up topping our nationals. No. Did it end up topping nationals? No, it topped I think it topped the core event and did not top nationals, or maybe it topped once. I can't remember off the top of my head. But blue is always really good into red, man. And blue it's going to do really good this format until Vegeta's not played a lot. And it's really cool to see that Soul Striker ended up doing well, at least in one of the events. This is another deck that's probably like mid-level entry. No, it's not like the hardest deck to play, but because now you have to awaken at 4, you kind of have to be able to control yourself and get down the 4 safely. And there's a lot of tools for you to be able to do that. Deck will always have support because blue's always going to be able to restand energy, so the deck's never going to really go away. And just kind of it's never going away. You just kind of have to deal with it. Red Vegeta. This is the old Vegeta. Now, a lot of people are probably wondering, why the hell did I put this deck on this list? This deck is trash. However, you can use some of the Vegeta cards from this Vegeta in this deck. Not all of them, but you can use some of them. I think this deck is like really close to being like okay. So it's really close to being okay. It's probably a deck that maybe people will explore a little bit with. Maybe like once they have their invite for next year, they might start playing some of these different decks. But I think this Vegeta deck, and then also the Spirit Boost Vegeta deck from the starter deck, I think those are two decks to kind of look into because they both inherently get support by the Vegeta deck. Again, you can't really play some of the cards, like you can't play the black cards, but a lot of the other cards you can play. Like you can play the Dual Attacker, you can play the 8-drop Vegeta. Like you have some other targets to play, which is really cool. I think the deck is at least decent enough to learn how to play and could be considered a road deck at some point. We have the Revive Piccolo. I think this is going to be our first trash tier deck. Not worth playing, doesn't draw enough. It's cool that it can sort of survive against red because of the field spell. I don't think it's enough to even make it a considerable option for people going into this next set of regionals. Next we have Majin Vegeta. Probably falls in this area somewhere here. I'll probably put in like top of C tier. This deck has, you know, a board wipe, which is nice. It's just not as good as some of these other yellow decks on the list. And I think if Nova was to be hit, this deck would probably move up a little bit because people would start playing it a little bit more. Gamma. Gamma's probably, like, I actually would put Gamma, like, right here. Yeah, Gamma's really good. Gamma's really good. We saw one topped we got second place, actually, in Latin America. So, and then it topped in the European event as well. So I think we're going to see Gamma probably do pretty well. You have a lot of different variations of Secret Rose you can play. You can go really, really wide. You have the ability to, just the use of your energy, man. Like, you have so many things you can do. The boss monsters are really strong. You got a really nice draw engine. I think Gamma's a really solid deck. Not a lot of negative that you can see about it. Maybe a step below Vegeta in the value game. But overall, I think Gamma's going to be really good. And we have our first, like, new deck that received support. So I know, like, Master Roshi received support, but, like, Garlic received a lot of really good support. 3 cards that turns this deck into a competitive deck. The first time ever. First time ever this deck is actually being good. I'm going to put this deck right here in competitive below the red decks. Garlic has the ability now to tap your opponent's energy. You have a field spell, a new Makio Star that has the ability of killing stuff in rest mode. The Unison that you can play from the Z deck is really strong. The only problem with this deck is seeing your Makio Star cards on turn 1. As long as you see that, you should be okay for most games. If you don't see that, it's going to hurt a lot. It's going to hurt a lot. Having gigantic 30k indestructible blockers, though, is really powerful. You don't have a lot of room for non-Garlic Demon Clan stuff because the archetype is so heavy. But I think there's going to be a way to kind of maybe taper those down a little bit to add some more tech. But this is going to be a deck that you're going to want to learn how to play against. And similar to Zamasu having all these indestructible cards, you're going to want to be able to know how to remove those cards. So that's something you should be at least teching for. If you're teching for Zamasu, you should just tech for Garlic as well. That brings us to probably the most anticipated deck that people love to hear me talk about, which is Big Action Broly here. So we saw Broly top 2 different events in Europe. Won one of the events. I put an asterisk on that, but did well in 2 of the events in Europe. I don't think it topped the event in Australia. I think it had 1 person in North America top with it at the Pasadena regional, and then it didn't top in Latin America, didn't top at our nationals. There were 2 people who played it at Worlds, and I think they lost both of their games. So Broly's kind of in a weird spot, right? So I put it in trash tier last time because I wanted to make some people pissed. Obviously that worked, so I got a good kick out of that for a few weeks. The deck is probably somewhere in this like middle range here, right? Probably put it like right probably like right here. Probably like right here. Right? So a few things with Broly. The list that we saw top in Europe, we saw very similar lists to those that they took to Worlds. Now, mind you can take any deck to Worlds, so it's not like, oh, Broly won, you know, Broly did well at Worlds. You could take any deck to Worlds, right? Someone took fucking the starter deck Vegito, right? So you can take any deck that you want. Those lists seem very built to deal with Vegeta, and I don't think either one of them played against Vegeta. So they ended up getting cooked because they were really tech to deal with Vegeta. However, I don't think their lists were optimized well to deal with Vegeta. Just at the end of the day, I think they had Unison of Fury, which was really cool. There was a few cards that they were missing from their main deck and side deck that I'm like, you could probably play this stuff. Broly's going to be a deck that you'll probably see off and on that people will say that's not very good. Because there's a lot of people, it's not just me. There's a lot of people who say that this deck's not very good. There are a lot of people who think this deck is the best deck in the game. There's people who called this deck meta-defining, right? That's wild. It can't be meta-defining if it doesn't top in North America. That's just kind of how it is. We have the largest player base. We have, 3 or 4 world champions out of the, in the world. So you can kind of, I think we kind of know what the meta is typically and what's considered like best deck in the game, right? Like everyone said that, everyone said Android 21 was bad except for people who played it in North America and ended up winning a Worlds. I think Broly is kind of that for other regions. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of people think Broly on the same level as like Android 21. And it's probably close, to be honest with you. It's very, very close. However, Android 21 is probably still a better deck. It just has better defense. Like, you have more energy restanding. You can clear boards a little bit easier. You have the ability of regaining life. Broly doesn't do any of that stuff. Broly is, if you make 1 or 2 mistakes with Broly, like, it's really hard to come back from. Sure, you're a 25k leader, but when you're playing against decks like Nova, like, they're swinging 30s, so like the 25 doesn't really matter that much. I think Broly will be okay. I mean, Broly's a deck that will probably do well in a few of the regionals this year. However, it's not as good as what people thought it was. It's just not. It's underwhelming to some extent. I think it's going to take probably a North American player who wins an event with it, who has a better list than what we've seen, for a lot of other people to start agreeing that this deck is like tier 1. That's just my honest opinion, right? Like, the deck ended up winning an event and then it lost the first round, when it played, and I just, there's too much hype around it. So we'll see. We'll see if it does at least okay enough to be considered a competitive deck when we get to our next tier list in a few months. We have Successor Frieza. I think this deck is probably like below a lot of the stuff. It's probably in this like range down here. The Zarbon is really good. The deck needs to be able to charge multicolors for free, and you can't. I think that's the only problem with the deck. Really needed to give us a card that allows us to do that. Cumber actually does okay against Vegeta, surprisingly enough. But again, my issue with Black is that if Black doesn't have a floodgate, it's just not great. So we're gonna put like Cumber like down here. Yellow Frieza is really good. Yellow Frieza is really good. Cold Bloodlust, right? Like, you have access to Cold Bloodlust. I've done a lot of this deck I've probably have tested probably as much as I've played Vegeta. I really am starting to figure out the way of playing Golden Frieza. And you really can utilize the 11 drops as your removal pieces. You can get a lot of swings out of them. The most tricky part about playing Frieza is your turn 1 and turn 2. And you really have to set up your turns to where you can build Z energy. And if you can't build Z energy, and you get to turn 3 and you haven't played the field or the Unison, either one, you're really far behind. So you have to be able to like Z charge like those early turns. And if you can figure that out, I think the deck is pretty competitive. So I'm actually going to put Frieza like right in this area. I expect to see Frieza at least top 1 event this year. Namek-Ku, still competitive. I don't think it's as competitive as I'm very disappointed that this deck just didn't do anything at Nats. Very disappointed. I thought it would have done at least a little bit of something. I'm gonna put Namek-Ku like right here, I think. Yeah, like right in this area here. Blue Oob is probably like rogue tier. The new support's cool, but you know, like Jacob, if you guys know Jacob, he made this deck, worked with a few other people to make this deck like mill dependent, which is really cool. But it's more of a fun deck, I think, still. Vegito, I think Vegito's probably the best green Saiyan leader. I know like Gohan ended up topping, but like I think Vegito's still probably the best green Saiyan leader. Like the 9-drop's incredible. You have the most defense out of any of the green Saiyan leaders because you have access to like King Cold and some other stuff. So I'm gonna still say Vegito's probably still the best the best green Saiyan leader that we have right now. Megikabura is competitive. I think you need Deborah counter to make the deck like really competitive. Because it's a free Dark Overwhelm and that allows you to trigger your leader. Obviously that card's not great into other matchups that are not yellow, but you do kind of have to play that card. It's an aggro deck. It's not a deck you can really play like a mid-rangey. It's really awkward to play it as a mid-range deck. It starts losing value as the game goes on. It's definitely still worse than Pan, unfortunately. So, Super 17, I'm gonna put it in trash just because the deck's really cool, but like the actual the concept of the deck, like when you read the card, you're like, oh man, this is good. Why does nobody play it? It did just receive support actually. I did just remember that, which I think you can give the one of the Super 17 guys crit. I'll put it in a rogue. Actually, I can't put it in. I can't put it in. I can't put it in trash. It just received support, and that support actually is pretty good. Blue Oob, or Blue Boo. No, sorry, not. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, right? It's just backwards. We'll put Boo right here in rogue. I'm just really shocked that again didn't see it in competitive top. I just thought because it's a blue deck people would play it, but I guess not. Vegito's trash now, unfortunately. No Beyond All Limits. This deck is just really hard to pilot right now. Aegis. I've been told Aegis is really, really strong. We talked about this last time. I think Aegis is probably one of those decks that if you play against it and you're not ready, you're just going to lose. Deck draws a ton of cards, got tons of defense, has a turn 5 almost insta kill way of just killing your opponent. Any deck that can remove the secret rare though has a chance of beating this deck. So as long as you can remove the secret rare, pretty good. Tapion. Tapion's probably like competitive, somewhat still. Probably like right there. And this is another deck that I actually was very surprised I didn't see people play. I guess people were jumping on the Bojack. Like Bojack is probably like just like the better version of Tapion in that sense of like that weird like one of two of unique role where someone's gonna play it and do well. That used to be Tapion. I guess Bojack's now that deck. Goku Zeno. It's probably Rogue at best. Like right here. No Beyond All Limits definitely hurts this deck a lot. You can still kill people really quickly, but it's just not as good. Green Gohan. I mean, we have to put it in at least in at least Rogue tier, right? Because one person top with it. It's probably like, I don't know, the new support. I guess the new support card being the Gohan. I don't think it really helps this deck that much. We'll put it right here. We'll put it right behind mine. Golden Cooler. Golden Cooler is probably the best black deck that you play right now. The promo Cumber is insane. Makes this deck competitive to an extent. This is probably the best black deck to play, which is weird because normally black Saiyan decks are just always better. But the new promo now, it's definitely Cooler definitely jumps up a peg. Swap Frieza. Ooh, Swap Frieza. Swap Frieza is going to be probably competitive. You have to put it in competitive. This deck is the two new promos make this deck probably the best deck out of the new regional support. I think it goes Frieza Swap, then Cooler, then Garlic. You can go into your Z leader much easier, which means you can go into the 8-drop quicker. You can just basically spit out all of these bodies that can just swing. So yeah, any of the Frieza leader. So Frieza Clan leaders having access to Cold Bloodlust, it's always a good time. Shroom and Salsa is probably still Rogue. It's I just don't think it's worth playing right now. Like it's like it's good enough. Like cause like there's certain decks that need their drop area, and like Sherman Cells can just fuck them up. But the support, the TP support was just kind of okay. Like it just didn't really do a lot. Super Saiyan 3 trash. Move on. U7 Goku still competitive. I'm confused. I was told that U7 has a super good win like percentage into Vegeta. It ended up winning our the core event, and then we did see a U7 top, which is good, right? I'm surprised we didn't see more U7 though, topping if the matchup was that good against Vegeta, right? I think U7 really, I mean, it's probably the most generic yellow deck. It's survived through a few different hits now. It's probably kind of what... It's probably just a little bit better than... I don't know. It's a little bit better than Frieza Swap, probably. Tons of draw power. You still have the burn effect. You're still lacking in the boss monster department for yellow. So I think if yellow gets another just generic good boss monster, you'll probably see U7 creep up to being like a little bit higher on this list. Blue Gohan, trash. Bojack is... Okay, so I'm going to put Bojack in Rogue tier just because nobody plays it. I'm putting it right below the Bojack here. Bojack, and he's got no head. That's funny. Bojack is actually a really good deck. It draws a lot. You have good unison removal. You have you are a non-Saiyan green leader, so you have access to like Piccolo. Unfortunately, just not enough people play it for it to be considered competitive. Well, I guess as I'm talking about it, I could probably put it in competitive. Yeah. Put it like right here. Yeah, because I'm putting Bojack here. If I'm going to put Golden Frieza on this list and no one's played it yet, I should probably put Bojack on here. Yeah, I should probably put Bojack. See, I correct myself sometimes. Cell Reboot. Competitive. So one person top with it. Deck's just really good. It's actually this is actually a really good deck for people to get into if they want to play green. You just got to buy 4 Dormants. Everything else you can probably get the deck under $100. Extra Goku. Okay, so I played a lot of this deck recently. This deck is going to be one of my rogue sleeper decks. I think this deck is really good. There's a lot of draw power. You have access to free extra cards. It's really good. I think people should give it a shot. It's not better than Vegeta. I think that's one of the matchups you probably struggle with is dealing with like red decks to an extent. But man, this deck is really cool. I think people should give it a shot. I really like this deck. I will probably, because I'm playing at least 3 of the in-person and or online regionals this year. This will probably be, once I get my invite, I will probably end up playing this deck for at least one of them. My goal is the top of this deck. So we're going to try to make that happen. Garlic, probably in the same boat. Garlic's probably a rogue deck. We've seen it top once. Outside of that, I don't think no one else is going to play the deck other than the guy who ended up topping with it. It's probably like right here. Polku is probably the same thing. I think being a Red Saiyan leader, it's gotten so much support. Like so many promos, and Red has just gotten so much support. The new UI Goku is really strong in this deck. It's got to be at least considered rogue. Kid-Ku. Man, have the mighty have fallen. I'm going to put it in competitive just out of principle alone because of how much of a dominating faction, like factor this deck had all of last year since its release. I'm still have to put it in competitive. It's a lot slower than Vegeta. But being able to still spit out 30k bodies is good. I'm just actually shocked that not a single Kid-Ku topped. I'm still just like flabbergasted by that. I thought at least one of them would have topped. Future Gohan is probably in the same boat. I'm gonna put Future, put it like right there. Yeah. Kaba, I don't think Kaba's great. Let's put Kaba down here in trash tier. Vegito, this was funny. So Vegito got 3rd place at Worlds. Now, granted, I don't think the guy who got 3rd place played this deck in his nationals to get his invite. I don't think he played Vegito. Vegito was sort of a pick to deal with yellow decks because of the fact you have, like, you can turn your unisons into these gigantic triple strikers. If you play Vegito in a full regional, I don't think you do that well. But this was a deck that was played for a specific format, which was the Worlds format. So I got to give him some credit. I'll put it in a rogue tier at the very minimum. Rainbow Gogeta is probably still okay. I would probably put it here in rogue tier as well. Anytime Mill is very popular, Gogeta, this deck is actually going to do very well. So if you run into a lot of Zamasu, you're going to do super well because you're going to be able to shuffle back in your drop area. You go really wide. You got a lot of big bodies. You're doing a lot of drawing. You have an anti can't kill me button. You got a lot of stuff. So I think this deck is probably good enough to play. We haven't seen anyone play it other than like one regional, and that's been it really. Gogeta BR trash. Bardock trash. Don't think we need to spend too much time on that. And looking at my list here, I think we're pretty... Let me kind of move some stuff around here a little bit. This is what we'll roll with here for the video. So thank you guys for watching. I'm sure have some comments. Some of you guys I'll probably answer. Some of you guys I'll probably just troll with you. So if you want to try to troll in the comments, I am completely open for that. But this is the list. This is probably pretty... I think this is pretty... I think this is pretty good. Yeah, we're going to stick with this list. So thank you guys for watching as always. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.